we haven't really talked about Donald Trump, but he has only been in literally not even 10 days, actually, about 8 days. And he's had a conversation with Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who's promised him 600 billion quid, like that. Yeah. Right, and suddenly, you know, Trump.
Rachel Reeves went to China and she got
600 million. Yeah, over 5 years, and she's just, you know, it's like chalk and cheese, isn't it? I mean, when you see the things that Donald Trump is able to do and has done just by simply saying, and I know that, you know, the executive authority that he has is different from what we run as a government here, but you know, it's breathtaking in a way. Exactly how much he's getting done. Let's get a quick voice note from Glenn on Labour.
Morning, Mike. Glenn from Suffolk here. Oh, the hypocrisy of Labour. They hate the rich. Keir Starmer's rich. Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner, they'll be rich by the time we get rid of them. Ed Miliband's rich. I dare say people like Andy Burnham aren't sort of too badly off. Oh, have a good day, Mike.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah, they are. They're, you know, the political class in this country now are wealthy people. You don't leave office as Prime Minister as anything other than a millionaire, it seems to me, you know. And people have just had enough, I think. They've just seen through it, you know.
Yeah, and just your previous correspondent's point about Donald Trump, I think what's interesting, and the reason I think it's particularly important, is I think when we get, you know, we're going to have a presidential election in 2028, we'll have a general election in the country this year in 2029.
Yes.
And we are going to be able to see, and literally we will be able to see, what Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have done, their approach, versus the approach taken by Donald Trump. And I suspect if you look at the way the two economies, the UK economy is shaping up against the US economy, and what we're seeing in Wall Street, okay, putting DeepSeek to one side for a minute, but if
that's
you look,
a bit of a blip, I think.
Yeah,
I was talking to some people yesterday who said, you know what, they've made so much money over the last sort of few years that their profits have massively boosted them, and that actually this little blip is not going to make a problem.
But America is where the action is. You know, that is versus this country, and I think we're going to compare the UK, if we continue on this trajectory of not supporting businesses, of not supporting people, you know, actually encouraging people to come in and invest in this country, then we're going to end up in a situation very quickly where Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves compare badly to Donald Trump and the approach he's taking, because they are two
diametrically opposed. Absolutely
opposed.
But let's look at the other big issue, which is going to affect our economy, I think, for years to come. Front page of the Sun: 10 million move here in 10 years, and this is the national statistical information that came out yesterday, just before we finished the show yesterday, about 9:30 it came out, that we're going to have something like 72.5 million people living here by 2032. Well, to be honest, we've got at least 72 million people living here now, and it's not even very clear whether that's an accurate figure, because we don't know how many illegals we don't know about. But, you know, there's no way, and many politicians have commented on this, there's no way that this is sustainable. No. You can't continually have more and more migrants coming in, because the migration growth is because of migrants coming in, the population growth rather. You know, the birth rate is falling in this country. The birth rate versus the death rate is about the same. We've now got 10 million more people here than there were when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, and there's no apparent reason to believe that it's ever going to stop at this point.
No, so the trajectory, I mean, Tony Smith, who's former head of UK Border Force, we're
going to get him on later.
He's got a very good article on page 10, op-ed piece on page 10 of the Sun this morning. 72.5 million in 7 years' time. That's up 4.9 million. It's almost entirely due to immigration. It is. In a healthy economy, democracy, you need to see the birth rate exceeding the death rate. That's the way it's always, but until very recently, it's been since the post-war era to different levels, right? But right now it's at zero. It's flat. So this increase in the population is primarily down to migration. This will be, you know, this projection in terms of what happens between now and 2022.
And it may be wildly off, by the way. You know, it's only an ONS projection, because I've been saying, I think they counted the last population accurately counted was 67.9 or something like that in 2022. 3 years since then, we've had a net migration rise of 700,000 each year. So that's another 2 million.
The easiest way to deal with this problem, in terms of getting these net migration numbers down, is to clamp down on the visas.
Yeah.
It clamp down on the yes, I'm not for 1 minute diminishing that you have the small.
Yeah, but that is a small number. No, I get that.
But compared to the legal migration, it is much smaller.
No, well, we know, because we've seen the numbers, because they come out every year, that in the past 3 years we've had approximately 1.2 million people coming here, and we've had something like 500,000 or 600,000 leaving, which takes us back down to 700,000. Nobody's really sure if those numbers are accurate, but they certainly are. Over 1 million people coming here every single year is not sustainable.
But they won't do it. They won't clamp down on the visas, because businesses and sectors, not just in the public sector, I'm thinking particularly of the NHS, say we need people to come to this country to do the job and work. So that's why they won't do it. I mean, we had Cardiff University. They had a £32 million black hole. They announced 400 job losses yesterday, including their nursing programme. We're not training the people, and universities aren't training the people.
And do we not need to now sort of reassess how we operate in that sense? Because if we've got, as we know we have, 9.5 million people who are sort of, economically inactive, surely we should be making those people train up. Even if some of them can't work, they can do something. Even if we could train up 2 or 3 million of them, which is a third approximately of the figure.
2.8 million people on long-term sickness benefits.
If we could train these people up and get them to work in the NHS, which is what we say we need people for, great. But I mean, the Sun points out more or less that we are now we now have more people living here than they have in France.
Yes,
and we are half the size. By
Yeah.
land mass, we are now the most heavily populated country in Europe.
Yes, and it's only going one direction. But the problem that ministers have is that every time somebody turns around and says, we turn around and stop just put limits on visas or make the visas less attractive. Everybody, in industry or in public sector just throws their hands up and says, you can't do that because we need those people to come to this country to do those jobs.
Right.
And that's the hurdle. And businesses are continually complaining that they are not getting the required level of school leavers coming out of college and further education or even leaving our.
But I tell the story, and I'm starting to tell it now every single day, because it was a story told to me. I think it was actually may have been told to me by Tony Smith, but it was told to me about border security, that one of his former colleagues told him of a story where 3 women came from Nigeria and Africa to be nurses in the NHS. They had absolutely all the right papers. They came in on work visas. They had husbands, who were another 3 people, and they each had 5 children. And so collectively there was 21 people coming into Britain for 3 jobs in the NHS.
Yes.
Which is going to maybe give the Exchequer, maybe £5,000 a year in tax?
And when you looked at the numbers came out last year, where they said that actually immigration had led to an increase in GDP, but when you looked at GDP per capita, i.e. how well off individuals are as a result of immigration coming in, GDP per capita had fallen. Because with all due respect to those 3 Nigerian nurses who came in to work in the NHS, those are low-paid jobs.
And great,
so
bring them in, but don't bring, 17 other people with them.
Yeah, but the reason the NHS, and I'm not advocating for this, but I'm just explaining the reason they do it. The reason that you have these spousal visas and you can bring your children with them is because otherwise they wouldn't be able to get those people in the first place. Those 3 Nigerian nurses will say, "I'm not going to come to this country."
But the model is broken. It doesn't work.
I would completely agree. We are completely. Well, you said you didn't want to use the F word earlier, Mike, but we
it's
are
hard not to.
But that is the situation we are in. It is completely broken. We are not getting the kids coming out of school to do these jobs. It costs £5,000 if you want to train a nurse. Why don't you just go and work in Tesco? They do. Why bother to do that training? You just go and stack shelves or go and work in a factory. There's no incentive to do it.
Like most people, I go in and out of supermarkets all the time. I see people working there. They seem perfectly happy. It doesn't look like they're downtrodden because they're not doing a job that they think is well
those are perfectly valid jobs. I'm not one of those.
No, but what I'm saying is that they're not, it's not like people sometimes say, the trouble with people in Britain is they don't want to do these menial jobs. That's not true. They're quite happy to do menial jobs, and they're quite happy to have a job rather than actually be on the dole. But we've got a problem with people who don't want to do those jobs because they want to be on the dole for whatever reason. And there's millions of them, and we need to get them off their arses, frankly, out of bed, get up and get to work, frankly.
Yeah. But I mean, that will be. I imagine from what was trailed at the weekend, that's going to be part of the speech from Rachel Reeves. But
Which is happening today, we should
happening
say.
today,
Right?
mid-morning,
Can't
about
wait.
10 o'clock today.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Is they're going to try
Brilliant.
and catch down.
Rachel from accounts. I was just saying yesterday, I think she's morphing into Keir Starmer. They sound exactly the same. Should we have another look at why she thinks she's qualified to do the job? Because apparently she's an economist. Let's do it.
Well, I'm an economist. I studied economics. I got a master's in economics from the London School of Economics, and I worked as an economist at the Bank of England.
There's nothing else to say, really, is there?